tonight we're going to be discussing divorce and its effect on our family and our children. Some of the subjects we're going to delve into tonight are the immediate effects of separation or divorce on men, custody issues, spousal support, horror stories that happen to men, and on the positive note, some ways that we can prevent divorce or minimize its effects. And despite all the horror, how to be a good father despite divorce. And in the studio with us, I have a couple of guests, and I'd like to invite Rosemary Triglio and Paul Adago with us to discuss some of these issues. Hopefully we can solve some of these problems. Or I'm sure we're going to probably be asking more questions than answering any. But to start with, the immediate effect on men of a separation or divorce. It's terrible. I like to think, I've come to think of it as the wrecking ball. It's devastating to men, especially when it's not expected at all.
Well, it could be devastating to women also.
It could be, yes, it's devastating to the whole family. Yeah, certainly. But what I'm trying to get at is that, let's say through no fault of his own, all of a sudden the father's faced with losing his identity as a father, as a husband. And of course, in the event of separation or divorce, most times he's going to lose constant contact with his children. He's now going to be a visitor to his own children. And almost just as bad is he's going to be put out of his own home, something that he spent years to build. He loves his home. There's a lot of terrible effects that happen to a man when he's faced with this, a separation or a divorce. He loses all emotional support. He's lost his daily contact with his kids, like I said. Of course, the emotional support that he used to have from his wife, that's not there, especially if the wife initiated it, which in at least 3 out of 4 divorces is initiated by the woman. That's a fact. And it may be higher than that. I've heard 90%. And I hate to say it, but I think that women have an incentive to divorce because they're not going to lose everything like a man does, because it's supposedly gender neutral, these custody laws. But we know that most of the time men are out there working, supporting their family, and when it comes time to when it's family court time, who was the primary caregiver? We know who it was, and the man is the man is punished for supporting his family.
Do you think today it's usually the wife that's the primary? I think it's 50-50. Most women work today, so.
50.
But you're right. Most women get custody, whether they work or not.
Yeah.
So.
And despite who's at fault too, who. I mean, I think there should be some consideration about who brings the divorce, who wants out of the marriage. Maybe the person who wants out of the marriage should get out with nothing.
Like a contract.
Well, the man almost always gets out.
Yeah, whether or not he wants to.
Because kids are at home, and the man gets out and has to find a place to live.
So, Paul, what do you think about this wrecking ball effect? It's
a nightmare. You're dragged into court. They want to know how much money you made. It's not a good scene. You've got to produce all your records, and
it's like you're stripped.
And no matter what, it seems that you can't seem to do enough. You pay money, and once you establish a child support number, then if you go out and work another job or overtime, so you can pay those bills, well, now you've made more money.
Oh, sure.
So you can wind up back in court.
You're setting a precedent now.
Now
you're raising the bar.
Now you're making more money.
Yeah.
You're never making less money.
And now if you ever want to go back to working normally.
No, you can't go back.
They look at you funny, like, how come you're not working anymore?
Yeah, because the judge will say, well, you don't have to work less. You can always work more.
Well, how about also the bigger being put out of your house? I mean, a lot of times men aren't thinking straight, and when it's time for divorce, they think of their kids, and they figure, well, I guess if it's going to be either one of us leaving the house, all right, I guess I'll leave the kids with the mother in the house. And then we end up, or men end up, in a small little apartment. It's horrible.
So you're saying...
I mean, what does that do for your self-esteem or your mood or your...
So the man is being the martyr by leaving.
I think a lot of times they are. And guess what? They don't get the credit.
Well,
they don't get the credit for it. Paul, they don't get the credit for it.
They don't get the credit for it. They don't get the credit for it. I don't know. Well, I don't know about the martyr thing.
Yeah. We don't willingly want to be a martyr.
Why would you leave your home?
Well, because you're fighting. You don't really want to live with the person. She's a lot of times, if she's initiating,
so isn't it like a power play? It's like a power play.
Sometimes,
it's like a power play.
Well, a lot of men, they get out because they feel like, well, they have to go.
Yeah.
Have to go because.
Well, guess what?
It's just not working.
A lot of times the court says you have to go.
Well, the court will tell you that. The court
false accusations. We'll get into that in a minute.
Then why do lawyers?
Accusations.
Yes,
terrible.
I'm familiar with that.
I got a little quote I want to read. This is from Warren Farrell's new book. Or actually, it's not so new, but Women Can't Hear What Men Don't Say. Excellent book. The heading here is Post-Divorce. She's protected more than he, either by his income or government income. This says item. A friend of mine earns over $70,000 a year, but lives in a small apartment and feels deprived of his children. Although he would love the children and their home, his ex has both the children and their comfortable 3-bedroom home. After child support, alimony, and taxes, he has less than $10,000 to pay for his rent, food, and bills. If a divorce occurs, he may still continue to pay her, even though she does not continue to do housework for him. And the woman is more likely than he to have the home while he has the mortgage payments, to have the children while he has child support payments. There you go. There's sort of an incentive there. That's terrible. Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate. I didn't have to pay mortgage payments, but God, that would kill me if I had to do that.
That's only for a short period.
You're made to feel like a second-class citizen, though.
You certainly do feel.
You have no rights. The non-custodial parent has no rights. At all.
Oof.
We're
like a visitor.
We are a visitor.
Yep.
No rights.
Yep.
Legally, something goes down at school. Oh no, don't ask the father. The mother's the custodial parent. She's got to say so.
All of a sudden,
hospitalizations. If your child is in the hospital, he's just the father. I'm the one you want to talk to. The woman will say, "This has happened."
I'm the real boy. I'm the real parent.
That's right. He has nothing to say about this. Talk to me. This has actually happened to me. Don't pay any mind to him. He's just the father.
Terrible. But you have all the responsibilities, full responsibilities.
Well, I keep getting all the bills. My son will wind up in the hospital, and I will get the bills. I don't even know if he's in the hospital.
And they give you this cold eye too, this fish eye, like you're not doing enough, or
I've gotten thousands of dollars worth of billings from hospitals because the billing wasn't set up right.
Right.
Because somebody didn't bother to check the different addresses. Was it done on purpose? I don't know. Maybe. End result's the same.
Well, we have to, as men, band together and get some political clout and fight that kind of thing. I mean, they're obviously not caring because no one's putting up much of a stink. I'm putting up a stink.
Well,
that's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
I
want to read a little bit more from this book as to the effect on children. This is a short little thing. Children of divorce. Divorce has had an exceptionally difficult impact on boys expressing their feelings. It has left millions feel abandoned by the person most eligible to be their role model. A boy brought up by his mom, then thrust into a 90% female child care environment, and then an 85% female elementary school system has virtually no male role models. The result has been severe damage to a large portion of a whole generation of boys. Some join gangs for some male-male identity. A large study of urban children found that children from poor and wealthier families had equal crime rates if they both had dads. The difference in crime rate could be predicted only by comparing the children without fathers at home to the children with fathers at home. So it doesn't seem to make much difference as to the wealth of the family.
Does the level of visitation enter into it? Does that study say what fathers did or didn't spend time with their kids?
I would think that it would correlate.
Yeah.
I would think that it would correlate.
But it's still not the same as having an at-home live-in father.
No, it's not. That is so wonderful to have an at-home father, right?
But it's nice when the father visits and
well, see, here's
has
another
an
problem.
active part.
New York State does not have joint custody. Couples can arrange it, but it's hard to arrange. It's difficult. It's rare. New York has no provision for.
Yeah. That's terrible. New York is in the Stone Ages.
Yeah, for joint custody.
That is unbelievable.
You know?
We definitely, we're going to try to get that. That is like so much of a no-brainer.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
It might settle a lot of the problems the parents have because there'll be no child support.
Well,
Yep.
there might still be child support
Then
because
what's
the
the
child's
point
going to
of
live with one parent for, let's say, 80% of the time or 75% of the time, just because of schooling problems, and you could see, you know. But as far as the way it's set right now, the custodial parent right now makes
should
all.
not be a custodial
But New York State,
Well,
this is where we are.
it should be
New York
changed.
State custodial parent has the absolute say-so, and the non-custodial parent, which is almost always the father, has no say at all. And you know, we, as a parent, we're not included in any of the decision-making at all.
That's terrible.
None.
Well,
We
that's
hear about it
terrible,
as an
but-
afterthought.
Because they're assuming a lot of things, and men and women, men can be evil and good, and women can be evil and good. And we can't assume that one is one or the other, because there are evil women out there, and there are good fathers, and these poor fathers are, they can't believe what happens.
As long as I'm paying, as long as I'm getting stuck with all the legal obligation to pay the bills, I think I should have a lot to say about what services my children are going to get for my money.
Certainly.
And I have nothing to say about it. I just get the bills.
Well, that's a shame.
As far as custody, as I said before, men are punished in that way for being a provider. I mean, that seems to be the way it is. The more you work outside of the home, the less chance you have of getting custody of your children. Some, maybe not all men want custody, but I'm sure a lot of men would like to have an equal chance at it. I know I certainly would have. I would have loved to have an equal chance.
I think you're the exception. I think you're.
Oh no, I don't think so. Not at all.
Well,
as long as you know there's a good mother.
We'll ask our audience to email me what their feelings are.
I did have custody of two of my children, my oldest two children, who are now grown up.
But not through your choice.
But no, that's correct. The only way I got custody of them was that my ex-wife simply dropped them off on my doorstep and made it easy for me. Had I gone after it, I doubt I would have gotten it on.
That's what lawyers tell us.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
It was a gift.
But actually,
that's usually almost the only time.
To be fair, actually, women didn't have a choice either. It was just expected you take your children. You weren't asked.
No, but I think women
have.
Women could give. If they didn't want it.
Yeah,
I know society does put the pressure on.
Yeah.
Society puts the pressure on.
But, you know, nobody was asked.
Well,
so.
I mean, you could give it to custody to the father.
That's if they want it.
Or
that's if they want it.
That's true.
Otherwise,
but I think a lot of
another problem is that, okay, so I'm a non-custodial father. I have to work extra hours to pay my bills and my child support. So that just working extra hours cuts into the time that one would like to have with his kids.
Yeah, certainly.
Because you have to make more money. You can't
Yeah.
you can't live on the money you're making to start out with, and then you got to pay your child support. And I have no problem about paying child
That's
support.
right.
It's an obligation.
And
We should.
also, they don't look at your second family if you might have.
Oh,
one.
no, they
don't. That's
they don't
like
take- no.
they're blind to that. They don't care
No,
about your second
no,
obligations
no.
or your second children.
And the children are resentful.
Second
You're not,
wife.
you don't spend more time
Well,
with
of
them, I
course.
think.
Well, yeah, they
so
are.
he's
Sure,
working to
sure.
support them, and
lot
then
of-
they're mad that you're not with them.
And I have to call them up and say, you know, I got to work overtime tonight. I can't say how many times in the last year I've had to call up my 17-year-old son and say,
Just for you to have money for
You know-
yourself.
I got to work tonight.
Yeah.
And he'll say, it's okay, I understand. Well, at 17,
But
he
you
understands.
wonder- well, you
But not always. I mean, you know, going back a few years, maybe, although they didn't complain about it, but maybe they didn't understand.
You know, a lot of times, people who end up supporting fathers' rights are second wives because they
That's-
see firsthand this
Right.
craziness.
That's how I got
Right.
involved.
Yeah.
The
I mean,
men's issue.
When I was in a previous men's rights group, we would hear from these guys' mothers and second wives. Half the time I was talking to a woman who was related to the guy who's getting some sort of crazy court order.
Because women, I think, are more verbal. We express ourselves more, and
You're more
men
about-
keep it in
Yeah.
and get
That's why
angry.
yeah,
And that's why when they talk about stalking women and they're stalking because everything's kept in instead of verbalizing it. And
What about visitation? Have you had, Paul? Yeah. Okay. Do you have something to say
yeah,
on that
I've got
matter?
a couple of.
Yeah. Well, do
How
they
about-
enforce
Well,
visitation
here's the
orders?
thing.
no, they don't.
How about court order for visitation in my hand,
Right.
going up to the door, knocking on the door, and saying to my wife, "I'd like to see my son today," and have her say, for whatever her reason, "No, you can't. No, I don't. You're not welcome. You can't." Whatever the excuse was, I take myself and the papers back to the car, go around the corner, use the phone. That's before cell phones.
Yeah.
And call 911. Police would come down 20 minutes, half an hour later, show them the papers, had them right there in my hand. Policeman read the papers, right there in black and white. I had a court order to take my son away from the premises for the day.
Right.
Police
Court
officer-
ordered.
Police
Sure.
officer looks at the paper, said, "What's the problem?" The problem is she won't let me. Police officer goes up to the door. This happened at least 3 times, by
Yeah,
the way,
yeah.
documented at least 3 times. Police officer up to the door, knock on the door, speak to the mother of the child and say, "You're going to let your husband see the child?" "No, not today. I don't feel like it." Whatever the reason.
Oh,
she was
God.
mad
She
at
was
you, I'm
annoyed.
sure.
Who knows the
Well,
reason why?
Yeah.
She was mad.
Policeman
At
comes back out and says, "Well, you know," she says, "No." "What do you mean?" She says, "No, it's a court order." "Well, you know, you're going to have to go back to court and you know, get an." I said, "Excuse me, I have a court order right here in my hand. So why don't you go and do your job and enforce
Very good.
the court order?"
Good for you. Right.
You know,
It makes sense to me.
Well, what would you have me do? Arrest her? I said, "Well, I don't know if you have to arrest her, but go up to the door and sort of like give that as an option. I mean, after all, if I'm in violation of a court order, I'd be arrested
Yep.
because
Of course.
men are, women aren't."
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Long story short, policeman came back out, got on car radio, called his captain, or whoever he spoke to, higher up, and they wrote me up a field ticket and said, "Go back to court."
Wow. Terrible.
They didn't want to
And when I
arrest her
got,
because she has the child,
when
though.
go
Oh,
back
yeah,
to court
mackerel.
with 3 of these, and you know they'll say to my ex,
That is ridiculous.
"You know, you can't do that. You really have to go by the court order," and I mean that's it. You know,
That is
And I
crazy.
just can't help but feel that if I had violated a
Yeah.
court order 3 times, that
Yeah.
I'd be telling you this from jail right now
Yeah,
rather
yeah,
than from
very
here.
good.
Well,
Yeah.
they don't like to put a mother in jail because of the
Well, how
children.
about this? Wait a
Okay.
second.
You
I
know,
could
who's gonna
understand.
watch- who's
How
gonna
about-
watch
how
the
about-
kids?
how about-
Who's going to watch
Well,
the kids?
okay, you know
Well,
what?
Paul-
But I
Paul's
mean,
got-
that's what I think it's
So
fine.
that's a good reason,
No,
so she
no,
could
no,
violate
I'm
my
not saying
right.
a
it's
good
right,
point.
I'm
I mean,
just-
he's saying 3 times.
I'm
I
not
can
saying it's
understand maybe the
right.
first time, but after 3 times, 3 strikes and you're out, as they say, and yes, you will go to jail now. The 3rd time that you refuse a visitation order. This is a court order.
And it has happened over the
a
years.
court order.
It has happened with this one. It has happened many, many times, over and over and over again.
That's terrible.
There's been times, even as long as 3, 4 months, I haven't been able to see my child. Because to go back into court, it's like, well, why am I going to waste my time when I'm going to spend a lot of money only to be told that, oh, well, gee, he's sick, he's this, he's that.
She doesn't
all kinds
show
of
up.
excuses.
Oh my God, and
She
you're trying
doesn't
to be a
show
good
up.
father. You're being the best father you can be, and she's putting a roadblock in front of
Many times.
Because,
And I think this is more the norm than the exception. I think a lot of men run into
crazy.
this. I've heard a lot of horror stories
well,
besides mine.
on a positive note, as we'll get into in a little while, but men have to be persistent, though. Some ex-wives are better than others to all different degrees, and it's not easy being a part-time father. Well, believe me, I know it. But I did as much as I could do. Sometimes you don't feel like doing it. Sometimes there's a roadblock in your way, but I did the best I can do.
Well, all I know is
we keep plugging away.
nobody should be able
Because
to keep you away.
they will never forget the efforts that we make.
It annoys me that a lot of people think that, oh, the men got it easy.
Yeah. Please.
Or like,
Yeah.
well, so what? It's like you have it. What's your problem? You have it easy, and like as if we don't have feelings and that we
Well,
don't miss
guess
our
what?
kids.
The women don't have it
no.
easy
Didn't
either.
didn't say
because
that they
it's
didn't.
divorce
No,
is
that's
not
right.
easy.
Divorce isn't.
You're
Look,
half of
we
what
have,
you are.
look,
But
we've
there's an
heard
assumption that
for 30 years about the problems that women have had.
No.
Look,
Right.
that's great, okay, but we're here to discuss the problems that men are having. And guess what? All things being equal, the men have it worse because they didn't even have a choice in the matter. Okay? Yes, they lost their kids, and we love our kids just as much as the mother. Just as much. And we're hurt more because we don't have them. And second of all, we have to pay through the nose to support these kids that we don't see. It's tough. It's tough.
And
we want equality with that.
Visitation and child support are separate issues.
Yeah.
So you can't even, the court won't even let you link those two together.
Yeah. Well, I'm
even
glad
if you did-
supposedly that they do that.
Well, I mean, even if you're denied visitation. In fact,
You can't
when
not
you
pay.
are denied visitation and you petition the court to try to fix that problem, the court will always see that problem as less of a problem than the
The money.
support issue. The support issue
yeah.
is absolute
Yeah.
first in the court's
Because-
mind, and that the father's right to see his or her children is way down here someplace.
way
It
down
Because
there.
the
doesn't
court
count.
doesn't want to pay. They don't want the state to pick up.
Not
That's
all,
That's why I
not
think it's
all
important.
ex-wives are on welfare, if
Yeah,
that's what you're
certainly
getting at.
not.
Some are,
Yes,
some
but
are.
if you're
some
not
are.
paying,
Listen,
she's entitled to
But
some
regardless of that,
assistance.
guess
If
what?
she's not working.
The
if you're not,
government-
if the man's not paying, he can have his wages garnished. They take his income tax return.
Mm-hmm.
They can garnish his wages, take his income tax return, put a
If
lien
he's
on
working,
his
what
on
about
his
if he's
property.
not working? Like in my case,
Well, you
there's
know what?
nothing to be done.
If a man's
the
really not
problem is
working,
that,
what can
look,
you do?
The
Right,
government
nothing.
has to do our bidding, the public's bidding, and half the population are men. And we don't care about the money. I mean, if we don't make our viewpoint known, then they're just the people who have the microphone now, which are basically feminists, are getting in their way. The money is the main thing. But guess what? Half the population is saying half the important issue is also the visitation. And also,
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say, I'd rather have a flip of a coin in family court rather than this primary caregiver thing. That sounds stupid, a flip of a coin, but that's a better shake than men get now. We get a 90%, a 10% chance, or 5% chance. I don't even know what you
What
would say.
about whoever
2%
breaks the
chance?
marriage up? What about they lose, unless it's
There's a lot of reasons why
extenuating
marriages break
circumstances.
up.
Okay.
Yes, but if you choose, and your wife wasn't abusive, then the children,
If two people can't make it, if the
Right.
husband no longer loves the wife and the wife no longer loves
he
the husband,
loses. He
if
broke the contract.
okay, if I'm divorcing the woman, I'm not necessarily divorcing the children. Why do
I
you?
know, but you still broke the contract.
Ah,
I mean, it sounds terrible,
you know
but
what?
why?
There's a lot of reasons why marriages don't work.
That's exactly.
No,
There's
I
no
know that.
simple. First of all,
Don't
it's
you think
way too
some
easy to get
people would
married.
think
I've said that
twice?
before.
It is.
Way too
Why don't we
easy to get
why don't we
married.
discuss that?
Way too easy to
But
get
don't you
married.
think you'd think twice about leaving a marriage if you knew you were going to lose everything? I think a lot of people would think twice.
I don't think it would make that much difference.
Wow.
If you're not happy.
We're running out of time.
Okay.
Any closing remarks you would like to make? Any last moment points?
Well, my point is, I think a father is very important in a child's life, and I think it's horrible when women stop that
Certainly.
because of their own feelings.
Very good.
My son didn't see his father, and I know it hurt him.
Yeah.
And I think you're really abusing your own child.
Yeah, it's true.
You
I
know,
think men
put
have-
your own little
men
feelings
have to
aside,
make,
and
yes, certainly men have to make that.
whether you hate
that
each other.
Thank you very much for being my guest,
Nice
Paula
to be
Daga,
here.
Rosemary Triglio. I want to give the email address. It's
Okay.
gcostanz@suffolk.lib.ny.us. And I would like to get some feedback on the show, some show ideas possibly, guests, if anybody wants to be a guest. And of course, we could always use technical help in the studio. But again, I'd like to thank our guests. We had fun. We'll do it again.
Nice to be
Do it
here.
again.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't
Thank you
say
very
enough.
much.
I want to say more.
Paul, thank
I
you.
have a lot more to say.
Okay, so do I.